This podcast is sponsored by the Hubbell Difference Foundation.
Hi, I'm Harvey Hubbell. This is Harvey Hubbell Show and Tell, and I'm here with Sinclair Sherrill, who's back again, and we have some great questions for you. First of all, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Sinclair Sherrill, as you said, and I am the founder of Boon. Boon is a nonprofit, a nationwide education nonprofit, which raises and redistributes, invests money in teacher training, in the science of reading, structured language, grounded in the science of reading. And we also have a 12-state tutoring program that provides free tutoring in structured language to low-income and minority kids. Both designed and implemented to reduce the reading crisis.
You have some pretty strong feelings, and that's why you and I are friends, and we can talk about all kinds of things here.
I am passionate about this.
Voluntary giving. You're an expert on this.
Well, I'm knowledgeable. We're all learning. We're all learning.
Professional development, K through 12, public education. How did the professional development in K through 12 happen in the United States right now?
Well, I'm definitely not an expert on how how professional development unfolds through the system. But what I have tried to do is to create a nonprofit which raises funds and trains teachers outside the system. Because I feel the system is so dysfunctional that in real time, someone like me needs to invest in the individuals who are teachers. So Boon's program is designed for a teacher to apply as an individual, and then we fund the training through our 12 partners. So we don't give the teacher a check, but we give it to either a for-profit or non-profit training partner, and they do the training. Keeping in mind, Boon was established by non-educators who were experienced grant makers. We were giving to prep schools. We were giving to the independent schools that charge, beaucoup dollars to remediate a dyslexic. That's where we came from. I had also funded the Institute of Health Professions at the Mass General, et cetera. But our experience was focused on dyslexia early on. But we knew there was a much bigger issue in terms of the reading crisis, and we wanted to understand it. And so we got a grant to try to understand the complexity of this issue. And it is incredibly complicated.
So you say it's problematic to give it to schools. Why is it problematic? It seems like that seems like a directly straight way to do it.
They're not set up to train teachers. They're, to my knowledge, they're busy doing what they're doing. Their track record is so abysmal when it comes to doing their jobs that it's much more efficient to train through the people we do train with. And there is some overlap. We have our 12 trainers are all highly, highly regarded. They're operating all over the country. And as you know, the training that's unfolding in America is not only in-service teacher training, but also pre-service teacher training. And where we have come from is, initially we were primarily training reading experts. And then we've gone into training general classroom teachers. And but when states get into teacher training, they are training in-service teachers on a massive scale, and it's mostly coursework. And
wait a minute, we got to go back on something, because you and I have known each other. You've talked with us before. We've wandered around through this stuff. Yep. So you have an audience of like two kinds of people: the people who know about why there's teacher training. But let's just take it to the other audience and the rest of the people out there. I thought these people went to college. So a teacher goes, like an engineer who builds a bridge goes to engineer bridge building school, and they can build a bridge. So a doctor goes to school, for medical school, and he learns how to become a medical guy. So a teacher goes to school. This is where I want you to to talk.
Yeah,
talk
I'm
with
sure
me.
there's many other people you've spoken to that say the same thing, which is schools of ed in this country do not train teachers to teach reading. Simply stated, and there's a tremendous shortage of the teachers that do know how to teach reading using structured literacy methods grounded in the science of reading. They don't know. They don't know how to do that. They haven't been trained.
Well, why not? They're this.
Oh, I have no idea, Harvey. Why not? But academic freedom has permitted schools of ed to do whatever they wanted to do for a long, long time, and for some reason they're impervious to the accountability associated with 83% of the African American kids in America are failing to reach grade level reading, 73% of the Hispanics are failing, 50% of the whites are failing, and then the problem is compounded by the fact that the textbook companies are just compounding the problem by providing textbooks that don't improve how teachers teach reading. So you just have a incredibly difficult set of circumstances.
That's madness.
It is madness. And then, of course, where all the experts have been living since Sam Morton did his thing has been in the dyslexia world, because that's where the expertise is really needed, and that's where the paycheck is. That's where the tuition is, remediating dyslexics. And of course, dyslexia is a feature, it's an issue, it's problematic. It's a language-based learning disability, but it is not the cause of the reading crisis. The reading crisis is just poor instruction. Massive scale of poor instruction.
Let's roll back. So what could one man do about this?
Well, we created Boon to train teachers autonomously, outside of the public education system. And the only thing that holds us back is raising more monies. And because the possibilities are limitless, absolutely limitless. And we turn away more people than we can give funding to.
So if a teacher sees you and says, "Hey, they're going to go to their board of education. They're going to go to their school superintendent and say, "Hey, we want this kind of training." How does it?
But we don't work with the schools. We don't work with any of those kind of public monies. We raise money from individuals, and then we invest it in our partners, and they provide the training. There isn't any state, local. We haven't seen any of those monies. And people like Emily Hanford have just done yeoman's gifted work in explaining what's going on to the average person in mainstream media. And even though the pandemic was catastrophic for kids and families, it raised the awareness of reading failure. And so the outcome is positive in a sense that it's moved the dial in a positive awareness direction, so that people are aware that teachers do not know how to teach reading on average, and that kids are failing as a result of it. And there's a lot of different ways up the mountain, public policy, legislation, licensure, in-service teacher training, graduate school teacher training. Kansas last summer passed a law, a literacy blueprint, from what I understand, to become a state that improves its reading scores, kind of following the Mississippi Miracle that began in the early 2000s. And, there's a...
Which way, we can't say the Mississippi Miracle without saying it's not a miracle. It's a lot of hard work.
A lot of hard work and a lot of money.
And I guess one of the things that you're also saying that we've learned, because I want to get back to this, is when we both have our roots in dyslexia, we both are passionate about that. But and the Decoding Dyslexia moms took the science of reading and were saying this. They were yelling off the roofs 10 years ago. They were saying this helps out everybody, no matter what your zip code is, no matter what language you're speaking at home. So the science of reading.
Still dyslexia laws, though. Still a dyslexia focus.
It's a dyslexia focus, but
the problem to me with dyslexia and dyslexia laws and talking about dyslexia is it's kind of exculpatory. It gets people off the hook. There's still people out there that don't even think that dyslexia exists.
Well,
it's just ridiculous.
There's people that don't think dyslexia exists. There's hopefully less of them than there was before, and there's a hard description of what dyslexia is. So, but it's a reading difficulty. But there's people more shocking that do not realize that there's a reading crisis in our country, which is more mind-boggling. And so my friend Sinclair Sherrill decided to, so you guys were grant makers.
Started Boon.
3
of us.
3 of you.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Earl, you.
Jeffrey Earls, Sebastian Scripps, and myself.
Okay.
Founded Boon. And, Sebastian and I had met at a dyslexia school's board of directors. And we were just thinking about how we could do more. And it takes knowledge to do more. And we needed to acquire that knowledge.
And so your partners, your 12 partners, you can just say who your partners.
I can do my best off the top of my head.
The first early ones, who your
Well,
partners.
we started, because my mother was an Orton Gillingham Fellow, we started with the Orton Gillingham Academy. Then we added IMSLEC, which is based in Texas, but it's got, associations and branches all over the country. And then we added Wilson Language Training, nonprofit partners, and those organizations all train reading experts. First and foremost, they train experts. That's hundreds of hours of coursework, hundreds of hours of supervised instructional supervision, they call practicums, which really embeds that coursework knowledge. And those are people that are capable of remediating a dyslexic, which is, the Green Beret type of activity required to help a kid with a language-based learning disability. But if you deploy those same people towards just failing readers, it's a, turnaround time success story, because they can teach anyone how to read. Anyone how to read.
So you call them Green Berets, I call them Jedis, whatever. These guys are, we know that these guys, so you got the expertise, but they didn't have enough money to be able to get going. And so Boon, it's the grant writers, they come together and you kind of put the rocket fuel in the rocket.
Yeah, I mean, every year we raise money and we distribute it to our partners so that they can train teachers and not charge them for a tuition. That's how the system works. That's how our pipeline works. And what we've done is we've gone from, the 3 expert reading trainers, teacher trainers, to adding more general classroom type stuff. And we've done that through Top 10 Tools. We've done that with the Reading League. We've done that with Keys for Literacy. We've done that with Mind Play. We've added child care providers for Building Blocks for Literacy and the Stern Center in Burlington, Vermont. And we're just developing a relationship with Knee House in Houston, and they have general classroom modules, and we're trying to be comprehensive. We've added.
Knee House is doing adults as well.
Yes, of course.
They do adults. So you're really doing a lot. So by bringing your partnerships together, you bring funding. They have experts. If there's people that wanted to give you a donation, how much does it have to be? A big amount? Can it be a little?
No, it's
amount?
Nominal to major, and it's what we've tried to do is to. I mean, it takes. We've spent more than a decade trying to put together these relationships so that we can easily give them money, so that they can train teachers. This is what we couldn't find. If I went down the street here with you and talked to a superintendent of a school district and said, gosh, we'd like to train teachers. And they go, really? Well, what would you suggest? Because we don't do it. We're teachers teaching kids in a school. We're not in the teacher training business. And so we don't go there. We go to the teacher trainers, the experts. And every single one of the people we work with are highly qualified with a track record. They've been doing this for a long time, and they know what they're doing. And our probably the most prevalent relationship is with Wilson Language Training. And when you think about the impact of Wilson Language Training, they've trained probably more teachers than any other entity in the United States.
How many do you think?
I would say 32,000 teachers, which is a staggering number of teachers. And not only have they done it effectively, they've actually managed the process. They have a company that keeps records and has implementation science and planning, and they're really organized to do what they do. I think at one time or another they've worked with maybe almost a quarter of the school districts in America. And the rest of the people in the field aren't that organized in my view. They're very talented, they're very competent, but they haven't been as organized as Wilson has been.
So Wilson, Barbara and Ed started this company years ago. They've really made a big difference.
Extraordinary.
So schools hire Wilson
Yep.
to come in, but they get if there's a partnership with Boon going on, and the school doesn't have a lot of
apples and oranges.
Tell me.
Well, because
make it clear for me. I'm pretty simple.
A school district would hire Wilson and pay Wilson to train their teachers. Wilson doesn't do any advertising. Wilson doesn't chase the public schools. The public schools have to have consumed the Kool-Aid, had the aha moment to hire Wilson. They've had more business than they've known what to do with, dealing with that type of leader in public education.
Well, tell me how that happens, because I think that they have to consume it. What happens is the educators who are in these public schools, they go to an Orton Gillingham conference, they go to a Science of Reading conference, be it the Reading League, be it any one of these conferences, Plain Talk, they go someplace, the IDA, they go to one of these places, and they say, wait a minute, they go because they're teaching kids to read and kids aren't learning how to read. They realize when they were sold a bag of goods at school, the university didn't teach them how to read. So then a couple of these mavericks, a couple of these superhero educators, maybe sometimes their kids are dyslexic or kids can't read, or they just can't reach the classroom that they want to. So they go to these conferences, and that's where they find the Wilsons and they find these other training institutes.
Exactly.
So around that time, if there's not funding in the schools, so tell me when I'm missing it. If there's not funding because those mavericks, those people that go to those conferences, they go to their board of education, they go to their superintendents, they say, hey, and they're screaming and saying, we got to be able to do this, and we have to learn the science of reading. So where does Boon come in a situation?
Well, we work with individuals. So, they find out about Boon and they apply. These are motivated individual teachers who have learned that they don't have the training to be a good reading teacher. And so they ask for, they look at our partners and they go, gosh, we'd love to have Reading League training. We'd love to have Wilson training. We'd love to have, whatever type of training. And they ask us for the funding, and we provide the funding to the trainer, and off they go.
Because they don't have enough funding because the town isn't buying into it, or
for whatever reason.
They're saying it's too expensive, and they say, wait, hold on, I've just talked to Boon, and we can make a difference.
But remember, direct it towards the individual. If Boon had more resources, the gloves would be off. We could explore other options.
Well, how do we get you more resources? How does that happen?
Well, there's no money in this field. All the education money in America goes to higher ed, where all the readers are. It's the no-brainer investment in an education is in higher ed. Billions gets put into higher ed. K-12, where 50 million American children are enrolled, doesn't see private philanthropy. It's not set up to. There are schools are raising money for football uniforms and one thing or another, the PTA, but they are not a target for private giving.
But when you say philanthropy and you're saying private giving, I'm thinking of a couple numbers with a bunch of zeros on the end of it. But you're saying that mom and pop and grandma and grandpa and other people can they can give money to you, and you help. Your money goes directly into.
We've done the homework and the legwork to make it easy for someone to contribute $10 and see it go into a scholarship through our donor-funded scholarship program.
So $10, somebody
or
gives
$1,000 or $100,000.
Somebody gives $100,000, or they give, but a lot of people don't have $100,000.
Right.
So a lot of people, might not have 100. So,
Right.
but you're saying $10 actually makes a difference.
Cup of coffee.
It's a cup of coffee,
Yeah, it adds
actually,
up.
and it helps teachers who want to learn the science of reading, and they're going to be able to help in these districts. And these are the people that are saying these are the problems, and so you help them. So that's how your $10, you go one cup of coffee less that day, and you can feel good about yourself, and it's a write-off to give $10 to Boon, or $100 or $1,000
Exactly.
to Boon, and you get more teachers in the field teaching. How many teachers are there in the great United States of America?
Well, there's, I think, 3.5 million or something like that in the public schools.
And they change after 5 years. A lot of people just drop out, but the ones who care and the ones who stick around, they're the ones who've been there for after 5 years. Am I right, Sinclair?
And the people that apply to us for scholarships, every single one of them has a lot of experience and is frustrated and would like to do better. And you think about our friend Donna Heitmanick, who a public school teacher who starts what I should have learned in college, the science of reading. There's hundreds of thousands of teachers who are in that Facebook group, and they're concerned, motivated, caring, committed, dedicated teachers that all deserve our respect. And at the end of the day, if they're going to get training, they're in this chaotic, complex environment where, because the training, it's not like going to medical school or going to law school or something, but if you're earning what they're earning, a tuition that's $3,000 or $4,000 to become a reading expert is definitively out of reach. And a lot of these other scholarships that are for a general classroom teacher, they're still hundreds of dollars, and it's beyond them.
Same with firemen, same with police officers. They come in, and people like the attrition rate in the first 5 years is like, forget about it, I'm not going to do this. So the bottom line with these educators, these veteran educators that stick around, they probably didn't do it for the money. They did it because they could train kids. They teach kids, but they realized they didn't have the training. So those are the guys that you're helping out. You're helping the veterans who know what they need to do, and they have the skill and the stick-to-itness to be able to make a difference and get things done. And that's what Donna's group does. And so everybody, everybody.
I am meeting people as we go.
You're meeting people. Well, you're still a young guy.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So you're meeting people as we go, but the field is expanding too, because a lot of people are realizing there is a reading crisis in our country, and you're making a difference.
One of the things I've learned since we began operations in 2018, so what is that, 7 years, is that I made the assumption that educators would want to fund their peers to get training, themselves and their peers to get training. And so far that hasn't happened. We do have educators supporting our work in the donor-funded scholarship program, but my vision was misplaced in that I thought that the educators would fund each other. And one of the things that we're trying to do, pivoting here, is to reach out and develop a new audience of potential funders that are people that just celebrate and love the written word. So the authors and the readers and the book purchasers and the Kindle purchasers and people that love magazines and people that go to libraries and people who write for newspapers, and all of that culture, all that group of people, that audience. We can educate them about the science, about the reading crisis, educate them about the choices in how you teach reading, so they understand that, because that's as obscure, that's a needle in a haystack level of knowledge. made much, much better by what Emily Hanford does in her podcast, because those are understandable, but that's still generally obscure, needle in a haystack type knowledge. And what we're hoping is that if we can expose people that love things in print, that we could get that nominal gift from them at scale and invest that into teacher training.
So you're talking about people who are in the supermarket line who buy the magazine, right, or the people who go stop by a bookstore and pick up something. You're saying, hey, you know what? It's like for $10, you're making a difference. Now, you put your money where your mouth is, because you put in some of your own cash, and people say, oh, Sinclair and Boon, they're good, they don't need me. But you're saying, well, they're going to be adding on to where you put your money in your mouth. How many years have you been doing this?
I've been raising money forever, seemingly. But it's any fundraising enterprise, whether it's Southport School with our friend Ben Powers, or the Volunteers of America or the Salvation Army, it's a combination of nominal donors and major donors. Most of the money in fundraising comes from the major donors, but the breadth of the philanthropy is essential. You need lots and lots of nominal donors to create the base you're looking for. And the major donors look over at the breadth and say, gosh, thousands of people are contributing to Boon. This is fantastic. I have greater means. I will give something at my level of capacity. And it's that mixture, it's that community of donors that makes something really strong. And one of the things that I was in the 90s, I got paralyzed with something called Guillain-Barré, which is an immune disorder. And what it does is your white blood cells attack your peripheral nervous system and paralyzes you. And Franklin Roosevelt, who was President of the United States, came down with Guillain-Barré. He was misdiagnosed as having polio, but he got Guillain-Barré and he never got out of it. He was permanently in a wheelchair. And one of the cool things he did was, because he had polio, and polio was rampant at the time, they created the March of Dimes, and which was the big public portion of raising dollars to come up with a vaccine.
I remember the March of Dimes.
Amazing. All of us, at our age group, those little things you could put 10 cents in at the pharmacy kind of thing, or at the grocery store. And then behind the scenes, Franklin Roosevelt, who came from a sophisticated, wealthy New York family, had contacts where they were raising major monies behind the scenes. So it was this combination of major monies coming through this network of guys that Franklin Roosevelt knew. And then there was this massive March of Dimes public campaign. And the combination of the two cured polio. And when I started Boon, I had this, insane vision that you could have, a march of dollars, if you will, running funds through Boon to train teachers outside the system. Not the sole solution, just part of the solution. Because Harvey, we all know, politicians, it's like new and improved and quick fix, and the public's attention wanes. And right now, the science of reading is, greater awareness is developing with the science of reading. Laws are being passed. What Mississippi did, North Carolina's doing, Ohio is doing. There's real trends in improving laws and licensure and teacher training so that these kids don't get disenfranchised. But it could fail.
Yeah, but Sinclair, I thought you had this under control. Now you're telling us we got this under control. If we got this, if we put it all together, if we make a difference together, so this is one of those we the people kind of things.
Yeah.
So I thought you were doing this. I
am. I'm a far greater enthusiast of philanthropy and individual choice and voluntary giving than I am of state and federal monies. Taxation, everything great that ever happened in this country happened through private philanthropy, including education, We didn't have a public education in America.
But you're using
We didn't have public colleges in America. We had private colleges that were funded by voluntary gifts by citizens. And this shift to public education, all good, many, many great, fabulous things have happened with it. But we look to the system, we look to the government to be the big provider, to be the big answer. And obviously, if you look at education, it hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened. And historically, America's education system was training people to have enough education and enough reading skills to go to work in a factory. Well, that is not where we are in our evolution anymore. This is a nation of, we are busy now trying to rebuild our manufacturing base, but we're a country of higher ed. You need to be able to read to function now. Even though, we read the statistics and men read less than they ever have, and, but reading isn't as popular, and, you pick up an article and kids from elite colleges aren't being required to finish books. They're reading excerpts. It's just a mess. It's just a dysfunctional mess. It's so troubling. I can get derailed on how troubling all of these indicators are, but we're on this individual to individual teacher training, and Boone doesn't operate with any state or federal or public monies. It's all from individuals, and we're proud of that. And now we have a tutoring program, which we launched in the aftermath of the pandemic, where we bring exclusively Wilson certified level 1 or 2 practitioners to tutor kids who are low income and minority kids. And we've got beta programs in 12 states. We've just started in Oakland, which is an incredible town with issues of reading failure. We're trying to make a difference there. And Boone is positioned where I could hire thousands of Wilson people to teach for us.
But you have the answer. And when you use that big word philanthropy, I can't even spell it, but the word giving sounds like something what the regular Joe can do.
Yeah.
So I think what people should be thinking about in this situation, in the reading crisis, is that they can make a difference.
Well, it's a combination of all of us working. All of us are working to reduce the impact of the reading crisis.
I've given you donations, and when you've when you've said one educator, you can educate a teacher, which is going to turn how many students around in their lifetime?
Well, boy, in search of hard data on the impact of an individual teacher is a never-ending quest, but we have heard estimates of career impact being 250 students for one teacher to as high as 500 or more. So it just, if Boone has trained 1,000 teachers, our impact could be anywhere from a low of 250,000 kids to 500,000 kids. And literally the sky's the limit, because Boone is just a conduit. Because the only reason I'm into Boone and the only reason I founded Boone is because I have been an obsessional reader since I could read, just loving it. And I was the son of a reading expert. And the combination of those two things, and then you add the fact that I've been blessed with a chance to give away family foundation monies without having to earn it, those three things have been my little trifecta in trying to make a difference in this. But the problem is that Sebastian and I have faced, Jeffrey has faced, and I have faced is, even though we have monies to give away, this is a colossal issue, and it's an expensive issue. I would guess, just guessing, how much money has been spent in Mississippi to train teachers. Just from a private philanthropic standpoint, north of $200 million has been given privately to improve reading scores in Mississippi. And then you've got state-funded monies, which is beyond that. They're probably into $500 million.
And that should have happened at the university when they got trained. I mean, is it? Some people say it's a conspiracy. Some people are going to say it's just they're in the universities, the teaching schools.
Well, the teaching schools, under the fig leaf of academic freedom, don't teach teachers how to teach reading, period. So what do? They get out of school, they don't know how to teach reading, they go to their first job, and they're co-opted by the more senior teachers, and all the other teachers that are in the school where they first show up are using books that have been written by individuals we're aware of in the balanced literacy curriculum world. And once again, they don't know how to teach reading, and it doesn't happen. But you have a crisis like the pandemic, and the parents are locked at home with the kids. The kids can't read, and they go, my gosh, my kid can't read. Why? I'm paying my taxes. Well, just because you pay your taxes doesn't mean the money's going to walk over to the school and be implemented in some effective manner so that your kid can read. There's a humongous disconnect here, And there's no accountability in the schools and in the public education system. No one gets fired because they don't know how to teach reading. Bottom line, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, you're going to get disbarred or sued if you didn't do the operation. This is not the case in education. And of course, there's 700 schools of education in this country. And I mean, somewhere beyond, if we all raised our hands in this room, how many actually know how to teach the science of reading? I mean, the National Center for Teacher Quality is busy right now evaluating, truly substantively trying to evaluate which schools out there know what they're doing. I mean, the IDA was early on in doing that and certifying. And you could go and say, well, how many schools of ed are using Wilson? And there'd be another dozen that are using Wilson. And you could say, gosh, how many are working with IMSLEC, in their school of ed? And we're talking about a very, very minor number of schools. Mount St. Joseph's. I mean, you can count them. I mean, in a decade, a million degree holders are created in a school in the education system. 1 million. None of them have the training required to teach reading. And those are the 1 million people that are going to get into the 1 million+ education system jobs. So while we're talking about the science of reading, while we're talking about teacher training, while we're talking about laws and legislation and new licensure, the Wild West, man, they're still cranking out these teachers. The revolving door of attrition is still happening. The scale of this is huge. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to, permanently establish a small nationwide nonprofit, education nonprofit, that stands the test of time and trains teachers with the best training available, offers it to them on a scholarship, and we have pledged literacy interventions, which is already, in a beta scale type of thing in 12 states. But literally, Harvey, a $1 million gift to Boon, I could employ 330 Wilson certified level 1 or 2 teachers and teach over 600 kids how to read well.
Of those millions of teachers, they're turning out millions and millions of students who become millions of adults, and we're training our kids. We don't even know what kind of careers they're going to have in 20 or 30 years. So what you're saying is, and you don't need millions of dollars. You need, if we the people started, you want to make America great again, we the people could just give money like we did back in the days for March of Dimes or anything else, or UNICEF or
Exactly.
any of these things, where your pennies, your dollars add up. You see the amount of money that our nation raises to help out other nations.
Extraordinary.
When if we wanted to help out our own nation, the easiest way to do it is teach a kid how to read. And you don't know if those kids are going to turn out to be, a Thomas Jefferson or what kind of inventor or a what. Instead, we're failing those kids, and those kids sometimes, and smart kids in bad neighborhoods, end up locked up, incarcerated because they didn't have a chance.
We are spending an Ivy League tuition to keep someone incarcerated.
That's true. The same, that same amount of money, and we pay for it. We don't pay for the.
We're paying for the education system at $14,000 a head, and we're spending $50,000 to keep the kid that didn't make it through school in jail. We have more people in prison in America than any other country in the world. We can point the finger at China and point the finger at Russia and point the finger, but we incarcerate more people in America than anybody.
Per capita.
Yeah. Not impressive. We're 20-something in the world in terms of reading performance. The average Kindle book, what do you think the average Kindle book costs? $15 maybe? Something in that ballpark? A third of that adds up to make a difference at a place like Boone. And when you think about the dozens, I don't even know how many schools there are remediating dyslexics, the Landmarks, the Southports, out there, the Churchills, the Windwards. These are expensive places to go to school. When those parents are done getting their kid through school, the parents of dyslexics who have invested the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 of tuition in those expensive schools
a year,
they're done. I'd love to attract those past parents to help and do with the greater good all the kids who are in the Title I schools, all the kids who are getting poor instruction, those parents of means, to get them associated with Boone. And I admire the coding dyslexia advocates. They wanted to change the system. That was their intent. Pass laws that would leverage the school system. And I think that those are all great things. And all the laws we pass to coerce the educators to do what they should be doing anyway is a long game. It's a very, very long game.
And you need money. You need money in the gas tank. You need money in the gas tank, fuel in the gas tank. Where do people give money to? How do they send it? Is Boon?
Boonphilanthropy.org. One of the things that's been cool about Boone to date is that because of the 3 grant makers that created Boone, our operations have been paid for so that a nominal gift that goes to Boone goes into a scholarship. And, it's a firewall between operations and between our programs, the donor-funded scholarship program and pledged literacy interventions. And literally, the sky's the limit. I am in conversations with people the way we are talking about getting $1 million grant to Boone so that I can increase the scale of our pledged literacy interventions by 330 teachers. And every time I hire a teacher to tutor for Boone, I pay them $3,000. They go out into the world and they tutor 2 children for 40 hours for nothing. And the reading scores on those kids go up a minimum of a year to a year and a half in 40 hours. Do you know how much time, Harvey, is spent trying to teach a kid how to read in public school? 1,000 hours. 300 hours a year, and they come up with squat after 3 years. 1,000 hours. In Boone's, Wilson certified level 1 and 2 teachers, in 40 hours are moving a kid at a minimum of a grade level, sometimes multiple grade levels. Wilson's history, corporate history, proves that if you know how to teach reading and you know how to teach a teacher how to teach reading, you can go into a school district and change the future of all the students that go into that school district. But it only happens in that context if the commitment's been made by the leadership and by the faculty. And I'm not going to live long enough to wait for that to happen. So Boone is rocking and rolling, 1 teacher at a time, 1 kid at a time. And it's exciting. and I invite the public to join in. You don't have to have a foundation to
You
be
don't have to be Bill Gates. You
Boon.
don't have to be. You don't have to be Buffett. You
don't have to.
You could be somebody who likes reading, somebody who invests in the country, somebody who likes kids, somebody
if you like our democracy, Harvey, if you love to read, if you want to see a kid reading rather than staring at their phone when they get off the school bus. I was behind a school bus the other day. Almost every kid that got off the school bus, it's like this. Now, if that was a Kindle, or if they were reading, that would be fine. But let's face it, they're on social media. But they are reading. People do need to read social media. But our readers in America need to be critical thinkers. They need to be able to differentiate fact from fiction. They need to understand what's going on. They need to be able to read material so that they can improve themselves, so that they can get the next job. That's what's so cool about reading, is I don't need a teacher. I'm my own teacher. I just read. If I want to learn about something, I read about it. I just started to read about Buddhism. I didn't sign up to go to some seminar. I'm not going away to pay a tuition. I just bought a book. Hey, that's what's so cool. I discovered that in 3rd grade. I could buy or go to the library and get a book. And I could learn about Annie Oakley. I could learn all about, these people.
That's a lifelong learner, and that you get children involved in reading
so cool.
At a young age, and it's a beautiful thing. You and I are passionate about reading, and what we're also passionate about is that there is a reading crisis in our nation, and we're losing people who care about books, and we have the ability to do it. We've both been beating our heads against the wall and with a bunch of our other friends who realize this is where the problems are. And I'm sorry I've been redundant today, but I just wanted to make sure we went through this.
No, we have to be. We just have to be like a...
We got to go back through these things, but...
We just have to be like a metronome, pounding. I was talking to a guy the other day who said that he had a conversation with Reed Lyon 15, 20 years ago. And Reed was going about, why isn't this front page news that kids are failing to learn how to read every day?
Why isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, they say part of the problem, at least in public education, is people that became teachers were effective readers themselves. They didn't struggle to learn how to read. And so, you can't read?
Arlene Sunday taught me that years ago. But I mean, the reason, it might have been on the front page news, but nobody ever reads newspapers anymore. So we wouldn't have known if it was on the,
well, I don't know. That'd be an interesting piece of research. We could find out if the New York Times has ever run a story about reading failure on the front page in its history.
On the front page.
I bet you they haven't.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time coming down here. You're making America great again. You're showing the world how we can do it.
Thank you for your most recent gift. I appreciate that. Well,
we appreciate what you do with it. So
I am going to be meeting Ann Friedman, who founded Planet Word, who I'm sure you've probably heard of, in my effort to get to this audience of people that love books like me. Because, if I didn't have to work at all I would do is read. But if I read, all I think about is the fact that other people can't. I hope you will consider making a small contribution to teacher training or tutoring in the science of reading through Boon. We would appreciate it. We would value it. It would strengthen our democracy. It'll strengthen our education system by increasing the capacities of the individual teacher as well as the individual student. Please join us. Please go on and look at our website, boonphilanthropy.org.
Bam! Look at that. Look at that. All right. I love it when this guy comes over and visits us here. All right. Thank you very much.
I drive hundreds of miles in the snow, like Renfrew, the mountain. I'm up there, my little red uniform on,